Welcome to episode 39 of Shane Talks 99. We're looking at September 1st, 1999. Our first film this week in 1999 was interesting. Like, I was interested in the movie because of the trailer. Like, I thought it looked like it was going to be another great entry into all of these, like, 1999 teenage coming of age films that we got. And I expected this to be, like, right up there with some of our, like, big American Pie movies from this year. Like, I thought it was going to be one of those like teenagers finding themselves, the trailer just made me like really excited for this movie and it just didn't it didn't turn out to be that movie that I was hoping that it was going to be. Like upon my rewatch of it this week, I'm still as disappointed as I was in the movie in 1999. Like it has some potential and it's not bad in any way. Like it's not a bad movie. It doesn't get me to where I was really hoping that I was gonna get. So like the movie that I'm talking about here first is called Outside Providence. And the script for the movie was written by Peter and Bobby Farrelly, and it was based on Peter Farrelly's book from like 1998 or whatever. And like unfortunately, it turns out that when this movie was in production, the Farrelly brothers just happened to be doing a little film that they were directing called There's Something About Mary. And so, like, I get like why they weren't available to direct this. I also don't understand why like. I don't know why this didn't get held off and pushed back for a while for them to direct it. But if I were Peter Farrelly and somebody was making a movie out of the book that I wrote, there was this supposed I haven't read the book, but it's supposedly a great coming of age story. You know, I would want to direct that. And like that's just me. Like I'm not very good at directing things that other people write. Like I like to write anything that I'm gonna direct. Like that's just how I am. So like the fact that if I had written a book and then I was given the chance to write the script about my own book, like there is absolutely no way. I mean, I'd say that like money talks, so whatever, but I would have pushed really hard to be the director. I would have said to my brother, yo, bro, um, why don't you just direct There's Something About Mary by yourself? And I'm gonna go direct Outside Providence based on the script that you and I wrote, based on the book that I wrote. Like that's just me. I don't understand why they couldn't have split up so that the Fairleys could have been directors of each one of these. I don't know. Like not sure if it's a contractual thing. I'm not sure if they thought that both being attached to There's Something About Mary would, help them in their careers. Like I don't know why they didn't think they could have separate careers. Like because they went on and directed a bunch of stuff together, which is fine. But like again, if it was me, I would not have passed up the chance. I would have fought tooth and nail to direct the movie based on my script, based on my book. Like I don't know. Like so, Outside Providence ended up being directed by a guy named Michael Carente, who is actually an actor, but I don't really know a lot of the stuff that he's credited with being in. Very few things on his resume even sounded familiar to me, and like he has directed a couple of things in his life, but the only other movie he's directed that I've even heard of is a movie called American Buffalo. And I had never would have been able to tell you that he was the director on it. The only reason I've even seen American Buffalo is because it's based on a David Mamet play. And like in the late 90s, after like Glenn Ross and stuff like that, like I became a huge Mamet fan. Like I think the Mamet is one of the best like writers of the late 90s, the 80s and 90s. Like I feel like David Mamet has just done a lot of phenomenal work. I like his dialogue. I like the way he writes characters. So that's the only reason I've ever even heard of the movie American Buffalo was because it was based on a Mamet play. I never could have told you that Michael Carente was the director of that. But let's go back. So this movie that's based on this book by Peter Farrelly is about apparently like semi-autobiographical about his experiences growing up and like I don't entirely know like what's fictional in the movie, but like you can tell that it's based on some real experiences. As somebody who writes based on a lot of my experiences and then fictionalizing them, making things bigger and more elaborate than they really were, because like I take, inspiration from my life, but I know nobody else would. So like I have to, play it up and make it more exciting and things like that. So like you can definitely tell that that's the way that this is written, or at least the script is. Again, I don't know how the book is done or whatnot, but we have this stoner main character and his stoner friends and his little podunk blue collar town that they live in. They're out riding around in a car getting high, and there's so much smoke in the car that our main character ends up rear-ending a police car. In order to stay out of super terrible legal trouble, our protagonist ends up having to go serve a sentence, I guess you could say, at an all boys school where like he's required to graduate from this all boys school and then, essentially his criminal record will be, wiped away or expunged or however they want to look at it or whatever. But like so he shows up at this all boys school and like it's kind of it starts out a little bit as like a fish out of water thing. Like he sees what all these other kids are like there, and they're all wearing the prep school outfits and stuff like that. And he kind of doesn't get very good vibes from them initially and stuff like that. But then over time, despite the fish out of water concept, he starts to realize that it's kind of a front. All these kids are putting on fronts, especially like when teachers are around or whatnot, because they get into all kinds of shenanigans just like his friends do. There's stoners at this school. There's kids that skip school. You know, it's not as prissy and proper as it at first appears to be. And so we start to, make acquaintances with some of his new friends and stuff like that and see what they're really like. And it's it's okay. Like that part, getting to know his new friends and seeing that like they're very, similar in their actions to his old friends. Like it's an interesting, plot plot point. Our lead, the guy that we've been talking about this whole time, is played by an actor named Sean Hennessy. He just came off of technically in 1998, he was in the film The Faculty, but I'm not gonna lie, like I consider The Faculty a 1999 movie because it came out on Christmas Day of 1998, so it was only a 1998 film for like a week, and then it was still in theaters in 1999. So like it's kind of that like pre 1999 movie, like, oh, we just came out a week too early, but we belong in 1999 because that's what we are. So, like, the faculty prepared us for what 1999 was going to become. And the faculty has an amazing cast. Also, I could do a whole episode on the great cast of that movie. So, anyway, I mean, so he was in a 1999 movie, kind of. He actually has two more 1999 movies coming out. He's going to be in a movie called Simpatico, and then he's in a rom-com called Anywhere But Here. So we'll get to talk about those later this year also. And then in 2000, the leftover 1999, we'll call it. He's also a sidekick character in the Julia Stiles Freddie Prinze Jr. movie Down to You, which is another movie that I love. But our female lead in this movie, she's played by Amy Smart, absolutely amazing actress, who in 1999, also in January of 1999, had a movie in theaters as she was the love interest of James Van Der Beek in Varsity Blues. Um, Sean and Amy actually have some really decent chemistry together in this movie. There's a number of like really enjoyable scenes that they have together where like um watching the genesis of their relationship and the things that they like the flirty stuff that they go through, like I really do enjoy that part of this movie. And that's more of what I wanted from this movie. So like there's bits and pieces of this film that are exactly what I wanted and hoped for, and these two actors give it to me as far as their relationship goes. Like starting to date, starting to figure each other out, flirting, like getting to know each other, figuring out how to work, in each other's friend group, like stuff like that is really well done. There's a lot of sidekick characters in this movie. Not many of them are very memorable. I take that back. Jonathan Brandis is in this movie. Jonathan Brandis from Ladybugs, Sidekick, Sequest. Like I was a big Jonathan Brandis fan growing up. He doesn't have a big role, but it's still kind of cool to see him like as a little bit older, he would have been in his early 20s when he filmed this movie and whatnot. So like he's the best of the sidekick characters. The other ones, both his home friends and his school friends are all good. Like there's a lot of really good characters that are there. They're just I can't tell you any of the actors. I don't recognize any of them, but they're all just like fine sidekick characters. Um, there are two other characters in this movie that I would like to talk about. First is Alec Baldwin, who plays his father. Um, and again, not a huge role. He's only got a couple of scenes in the movie, but his dad, Alec Baldwin, plays Sean Hennessy's dad, delivers like a speech discussing his wife's suicide that is like really well done. I don't 100% know if it like I understand like how it fits in this movie, but I think it would fit in this movie the way the movie was supposed to be, or how I thought the movie was going to be, and not the juxtaposition that we got of a really good coming of age story about, relationships, and then a bunch of really sex drug humor that got tried to get put into this movie. But like that scene that Alec Baldwin like does is really good. It's really well done. It's really well acted, and it kind of comes out of like it feels out of place is the only bad thing about it. Like it just doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like it should be a part of this movie the way that they've built this movie up to be. Which I guess is fine. Like I guess throwing the audience for a curveball is not like the worst thing. Like it's not the worst thing in cinema, but it just personally, I didn't think that it fit very well. So the other person that I was talking about is George Wendt. George Wendt. So Alec Baldwin's character has a group of poker buddies, and George Wendt, Norm, is one of those guys. So again, not a whole lot of dialogue, just a couple of lines here and there, but throw some humor in, and it's always good to see George Wendt, get to do anything. So as I was reading about the production of this movie and the post-production, actually more of this movie, is that the Weinsteins got heavily involved after the movie was filmed. Apparently, like I said, it sounds like the movies were being shot at the same time, um, because the Farrelly Brothers couldn't direct both of them. Um, there's Something About Mary came out in 1998. This one came out in 1999. So apparently, with how huge and successful There's Something About Mary was, the Weinsteins wanted this movie to kind of embrace that. Like the posters literally say, "From the guys that gave you There's Something About Mary." Like I think they were really trying to play that up and felt like they really needed the raunchy, sexy. I mean, like I said, this was the same year as American Pie. American Pie just came out like 6 weeks ago. I think they wanted something like that. Like I think they wanted something more sexual, something, the drug stuff was obviously already there. It's a huge, part of the story and whatnot. So it's not like they could add that. But like I think that's where the movie doesn't fit because it kind of just tries to be these two different things and doesn't pull either one of them off well. Again, like I said, I don't hate the movie. I don't dislike the movie. I think the movie's fine. I think the movie's enjoyable for what it is, but it's also a pretty forgettable movie. I don't know if I'd watched it since 1998. So, I'm sorry, since 1999. Um, I just I wanted to like this movie so much more. Like I said, the trailer for the movie looks like a lot of fun. It looks like a good I screw up my life. I get sent somewhere else. I meet a new group of people. They help me realize who I can and should be. Oh, there's this girl involved. Oh, she teaches me that I have potential and I'm not this, stoner loser. That's what I wanted. And I didn't exactly end up getting that. So kind of blah, got some moments, not necessarily worth your time. Let's talk about our second movie now. Oh my God. Well, I love one of these actors. Actually, I love both of these actors. We have Scream's Skeet Ulrich. Billy Loomis himself is in this movie. He is starring opposite the Academy Award winner, Cuba Gooding Jr., who was amazing in Jerry Maguire, deserving of his Academy Award. I honestly think that between Jerry Maguire, I think this might have been Cuba Gooding Jr.'s next movie. Maybe I could be wrong about that, but like this is a ridiculously terrible action. Well, I use action in quotations, like action movie, called Chill Factor. Chill Factor. Oh my God, this was terrible. Oh, and like another one. I don't think I've watched this since I saw it in the theaters in 1999. I know I never owned the DVD. I refused to buy it. Um, but as far as that goes, like rewatching it this week was absolutely miserable. It's super 90s. Like it's definitely shot super 90s. It definitely feels super 90s. It definitely has the cinematography and like mise en scène of a late 90s movie, but it's so bad. Like David Paymer is also in this cast. Who David Paymer's a great actor, and like he plays this scientist. The military is involved in the plot of this movie, where David Paymer's scientist in the opening sequence doing an experiment. That experiment goes wrong, and a bunch of military people die. Now, the sad part about all this is, in the opening scene, we do get Kevin J. O'Connor. an actor I really like. In 1999, he was also Benny in The Mummy, who one of the more funny parts of The Mummy. Benny was a great character. Kevin J. O'Connor, really great actor. Did a really amazing movie back in May. Did a piece of crap here in September. So I'm sorry, Kevin J. O'Connor, but you hit both ends of the spectrum here in 1999. The film Chill Factor is directed by a guy named Hugh Johnson. You have never heard of Hugh Johnson. Hugh Johnson never directed another movie aside from this. This is the only film that he attempted, or like that anybody ever gave him the chance to direct. Kind of reminds me of a couple of weeks ago when it was Universal Soldier: The Return, and that director never directed anything before that. Tried directing, went right back to cinematography after that. Like this guy, kind of the same story. He was a cinematographer also. He did movies like White Squall, G.I. Jane. After this, he would go on to do the Chronicles of Riddick and Aragon. Cinematographer on some pretty big Hollywood movies. Not a good director in any way. He can obviously move the camera, and the camera work's not what's bad in this movie. Like it's it's the movie. Like all right, so like we'll go back to the plot. Like the plot, the military dude that was kind of involved in the opening scene, he takes the fall for this experiment gone bad, even though David Paymer was like the scientist who was in charge of it. Like he goes down for the scientist and like goes off and spends 10 years in prison. After he gets out of prison, like essentially call him the poor man's General Hummel from The Rock. He literally spends this movie trying to be like a comedic version of Ed Harris's character, and it's a complete miserable failure. Like it's not good. He goes on this vendetta against the scientist. David Paymer's character has now created this like new explosive chemical material thing. It's like this blue goo. And so like he goes after him. And then this blue goo is nicknamed Elvis. And like I don't know why. I don't know if the script writer liked Elvis, but it literally it's named Elvis for one specific reason, so that in the third act of this movie, the bad guy can yell, "Where's Elvis?" And Skeet Ulrich gets a chance to respond, "Elvis has left the building." Like that's how bad this dialogue is in this movie. Like there is no other reason for this, explosive chemical to be named Elvis other than to write one absolutely terrible, stupid line of dialogue. So, poor man's General Hummel is actually named Colonel Brenner. He's our villain in this movie, who, after he gets out of jail, he hires a bunch of mercenaries to pursue our two dumbass leads. These guys are thrown together very stupidly. Skeet Ulrich is friends with David Paymer, so that makes sense. Skeet Ulrich works at the diner where David Paymer goes and eats, so they've met each other that way, and they fly fish together because apparently that was big in the 90s because 90s was fishing. um so yeah, so we've got them, and then Cuba Gooding Jr. shows up one day to do a delivery because he's got like an ice cream truck, and we end up finding out later that he stole the ice cream truck from this other guy who owed him money. So like Cuba's kind of a bad guy, but he's like a bad guy with a heart of gold because he was owed money. So like he stole the truck to try to get his money back, and like it's dumb, terrible plot device there. But when our mercenaries show up and kill David Paymer, he lets them know, hey, here's this blue goo. If it goes above 50 degrees, it explodes and it's really big and really bad. And I'm pretty sure this is how much I didn't pay attention to this plot point. I think it's the same stuff from the opening scene. I don't know for sure. Think so. I think I remember seeing Kevin J. O'Connor take a blue vial out of something in the opening scene when it all goes to shit. But anyway, this blue goo, if it goes above 50 degrees, big bada boom, explosions. So thank God Cuba Gooding Jr. is driving an ice cream truck, right? Throw the blue goo in the back of the ice cream truck and let's take off. Let's get away from all these mercenaries because we're two idiots who can outsmart military level grade mercenaries. Like just that's another terrible plot point. But I mean, I guess this isn't the only movie that's ever done that. And I've forgiven other movies for having such terrible plot device. But I mean, oh, it just does not work. Like, I mean, so as bad as this movie is, like, there is one scene I will give them credit for. There was one scene I actually felt some tension when I rewatched the movie this week. Like, they're on the run. They're like driving through these mountains. I think it's in Montana. I guess they have mountains in Montana. I've never been there, that I remember. But like, so they're driving on this like mountainside cliff, and then boom, like explosion happens, and like half the roadway like is gone. So they have to like try to slowly drive this truck over what's left of the road. But as the wheels are going, like the ground is like falling apart. and they're like really high up on this mountain, and like it shows shots like looking down over the side of the cliff, and like I'll give them this. I got a little tense during that 2 to 3 minute scene. Like I know that they survived it. I've seen the movie before, but like having not seen it for 25 years, I was like, oh, actually kind of tense watching these wheels go and the roadway and the truck starts to rock and like, okay, I'll give them that. That 2 minute sequence of the movie kind of got me when I was rewatching it this week. So okay, that's fine. And the other thing I will say about my rewatch this week, I watched it on Tubi because there was no way I was going to pay for this movie. Um, I want to give Tubi some credit here. Tubi does a really good job of knowing when to put commercials in because since it's a free app, you gotta sit through commercials before and during the day. It's essentially like watching it on TV. Every so often, you got to watch some ads. A lot of times on these free sites that I use to watch some of these things, like Pluto TV or some of these other ones, like they will throw an ad in there randomly whenever in the middle of the scene, in the middle of somebody saying their dialogue, like just every 10 minutes, no matter where the movie's at, we got to throw, 90 seconds of commercials in there, and it does not matter like story-wise what's going on. Got to give Tubi credit. Tubi chose their commercial moments when it was the end of a scene, changing to a different scene, like not in the middle of dialogue, like well done, Tubi. Like, I'll give you props for that. So yeah, that was the kind of terrible Wednesday releases that we had this week in September 1st, 1999. There was nothing that came out this Friday. Friday the which I mean, it makes sense. It was probably Labor Day weekend back in 1999, so they probably threw the Wednesday releases in there for people taking long weekends or whatnot. Nothing else came out this weekend, so we will be back in 10 days on September 10th, and it's going to be a great episode. It's going to be a great episode because I get to talk about Stir of Echoes, which is one of my favorite films from 1999 that was unfortunately overshadowed by The Sixth Sense. The fact that they came out so close together, just being a month apart here, August 6th to September 10th, like Sixth Sense was still going strong in the theaters at this point. Like I'm pretty sure that this week when these two movies came out, Sixth Sense was number one at the box office still. So Stir of Echoes kind of got overshadowed because it kind of unfortunately got compared to The Sixth Sense. And we'll talk about that next week. But I get to talk about Stir of Echoes. I get to talk about Stigmata, which I'm looking forward to rewatching because I don't remember liking it, but I also don't remember hating it, so I don't remember what my real opinion of the movie is. So I'm looking forward to rewatching that. And then another really enjoyable film that I like is called Best Laid Plans. Kind of an indie movie, like not as popular and well known, but I remember it being really well. So again, two of them. Really looking forward to rewatching this week to get them fresh on my mind. And then Stir of Echoes is one of my favorite films of 1999 that we get to talk about next week. So I'm very excited to be back for that.